Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So today we're out in the driveway, we're about to go camping. So what I need to do is take the van here and we need to convert it into camper mode. What do I mean by that? So right now the van is in kind of what I call soccer dad mode. So it has all 15 seats installed. So basically we take the kids and their entire soccer team to practice and games and things like that, but obviously this is not good for camping, so we need to get all these seats out. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll start installing the camper components back into the van. So I made a completely separate video that details how I get all of the seats in and out of the van. It's very detailed. Feel free to check out this video if you're interested, but it's actually not that complicated. So tell you what, let's just go ahead and skip over it in this video. All right, so we've got all the seats removed. So the first thing to get installed is my kitchen pod. I have a completely separate dedicated video on this kitchen pod if you're interested, but just for the purpose of discussion today, installation of this is actually really simple. What I do is I end up leveraging and using the same anchor points that the chairs usually do, and I simply do something like I run like a U-bolt like this, right? So now you got two bolts coming up that is going to be anchored onto this post, and then those are going to come up through these holes in the kitchen pod, and then I'll just kind of put, you know, a big old washer and put some nuts to screw it down onto that U-bolt. That provides a pretty secure anchor. On the other side, I actually just due to the geometry, there isn't enough room to put a whole U-bolt, so I have this J-bolt instead. So similarly, this J-bolt is just going to come down here and like that, hook onto it, and then when I screw it, it'll just hold it down tight. So that's basically the idea, is basically get this J-bolt in, get that U-bolt in, and then put the kitchen pod on top of it, and then screw it down. So let's do that, and we'll be right back in a second. All right, so there we go. We got the J-bolt in, we got that U-bolt in, and it's almost ready to go. The last thing I end up doing is I actually 3D printed a little plastic cap to go on top of this. The reason being that usually what sits in here is a 5-gallon fresh water tank, and it sits right here, and I just don't want these bolts pressing up into the bottom of that tank, and with all the vibration and the heat, I think it'd be better if we just had a little plastic cap. That would make it a little bit more structurally sound from distributing the load perspective. So let's get that screwed in, and then I think we're almost done with this kitchen pod. Okay, so the last thing to mention about the kitchen pod while we have this open and exposed is that I actually have two separate electrical systems that run a lot of either the 12 volt or the 120 volt AC power sources. So when I have it in normal van passenger mode, there's only the car battery, right? So I might want to be able to run some accessories, like for example, you can see the lights that I've got running right now in the ceiling, or even this kitchen pod. Sometimes I'll only have the kitchen pod and then maybe some seats back here, and I might want to be able to run the kitchen pod, run the sink, all that kind of stuff using the car battery, right? Because right now there's no house battery or no camper battery installed yet. So that's what I usually do here. I've got a couple of 12 volt sources. So here's one in a cigarette lighter kind of form factor that I could use right now. If I wanted to, I could plug in my kitchen pod, right? And this will run the pumps and everything, and I can plug it into here and it would run this, but it would suck down the car battery, right? The car starter battery. It's a similar story for the lights. You can see I've actually got this wire running right here, and this is 12 volts going in to power things like the lights. I also have an inverter running off the car battery. It's a small little inverter which runs 120 volts AC here. So basically the way it's currently wired up is all of these accessories, like the 12 volt water pump, the lights, I can even run 120 volts AC for running this TV or this outlet. Right now all of that is coming off of the car battery, the car starter battery. So that's it's questionable, right? It definitely works for short trips, but I don't think you want to be doing this for longer camping trips. So since I'm going ahead and switching over to camper configuration mode, what I'm going to want to do next is we're going to bring in the I have a bench here which houses all of my camper electronics. It's got the battery, it's got a larger inverter, it's basically got a separate dedicated camping subsystem for electrical. So we are going to want to wire everything up to that camper battery. So I've just got some quick connections that we can take off and switch from the car battery, which is currently running, over to the camper/house battery. So I just wanted to show you that right now because it's easy to see the electrical wiring. And it's a nice time to look at it before everything gets cluttered. So that's the next step. Now that we've got the kitchen pod installed, let's go ahead and get the electrical and this large bench which houses all the electrical installed right here. All right, so we've got the bench and all the electrical hooked back in. We've got the fridge in, we've got the kitchen pod with the water, and again, everything is now transferred over electrically. So we're not using the car battery any longer. We are now using the LiPo house battery here. So again, and yeah, we've got it hooked up now to our 2000 watt inverter. So again, now that everything is installed, let's give it a try. Oh, actually, maybe while I'm standing down here, I will show you that the way I've got these things mounted, it's the same way that the kitchen pod was mounted. There's a U-bolt there that kind of goes down and hooks onto these same hard points that the seats use. So everything should be installed both physically and electrically. So let's go ahead and give this a try. And in fact, you can see my battery monitor is back up and running because I plugged that in. So that's a good sign. That's working. Let's try the inverter now. So the inverter, my inverter is actually, I really like this inverter because it has a remote switch. So you can turn it on and off. So usually this is going to be buttoned up and nobody has access to any of this electrical. I put it behind a bulkhead so that it's nice and clean and tucked away. But you can turn the inverter on and off now remotely using this switch. So let's give it a try. There we go. So inverter is on. Perfect. So we should be able to have 120 volts AC to power things like the fridge. In fact, let's go ahead and try that. And I will show you the nice thing that I did is I actually rigged it up so that the fridge, the microwave, and some of these 120 volt AC items in the front, like this TV, and I've got a Raspberry Pi up there, those are all controlled individually. So I can turn these components on and off as I'd like. So tell you what, let's turn on the front equipment and we should see that hopefully come online. There you go. Good. That's on. Let's go ahead and how about the fridge? And if we are quiet, if I turn this on, you should hopefully be able to hear the fridge kick on and we'll see an additional wattage and current draw from the battery. So let's do that. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There we are. Yep. Fridge is running. Now let's test the microwave, and in fact, this is the reason why I had this set up like this, because sometimes when the fridge kicks on, you can see, I mean, it's drawing, I don't know, 100, I mean, I've seen it draw more than this, but that microwave will draw like a kilowatt. So sometimes I don't want the fridge and the microwave on at the same time. So what I will usually do is I'll turn the fridge off temporarily, and then I will energize the 120 volt AC to the microwave. So right now, the microwave is not on, but as soon as I crank this on, we're gonna see the battery start drawing like a kilowatt. So let's go ahead and just double check, make sure everything still works. There we go. Microwave is on. And yeah, there we are. We're drawing like 90 amps, a kilowatt. So this is perfect. It looks like all systems are functional. So we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and turn off the microwave. And then I will turn it off here. And I think we're all set. So electrically, we are back up and running. All right, so we've got the driver's side bench pretty much installed. So now we're gonna move over here to the passenger side. The passenger side is actually a lot easier to do. The thing that makes the driver's side a little bit tricky is because, as you saw, it's all kind of one piece, especially all this electrical. I didn't want to have to remove and reinstall this, so I kind of made this permanent. So the electrical is not easy to remove. Luckily, that LiPo battery is not very heavy, so it doesn't add a ton to the weight. But what ends up happening, right, is that bracket, right, and this load-bearing kind of 2x4, the whole thing has to go and drop down into the track and fit on top of this U-bolt perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but it has to all happen at one time. So it's a little bit of a physical effort to try to hold this. You know, you kind of basically have to take one of these U-bolts, you know, you thread it through here like this so it's sticking up. Then you have to try to drop the bench right on top of it so it goes over these posts, right? And again, it's just a little bit tricky to do because this entire thing, I don't know, you know, weighs 75 of, you know, pounds, something like that. It's pretty, it's cumbersome, right? But it's definitely doable. In fact, I was able to do this myself. It wasn't horrible. But the passenger bench, I built it in a slightly different fashion so that the 2x4 is actually able to be separated from the bench. So this is the part that needs to be attached with the U-bolts. And now, because it's standalone like this, I can easily just kind of weave this in and then, well, it's going to be kind of hard for me to do one-handed because I'm holding the camera, but I think you get the idea, right? I can first go ahead and I'm going to attach this rail, this 2x4, down to the floor using my U-bolt system, and all I have to do is just do it for just this 2x4. There's no bench yet. So I'm going to secure this part on using the 2x4 system. Then we're just going to drop the bench on top of this, and then we'll end up screwing the bench into a couple of these holes. It's going to make it a lot easier to install the passenger side bench. All right, so we've got the passenger side bench installed, and again, I just put it in, and you can see my attachment system is actually really simple. So I just have this metal plate here where if I just remove these 4 screws, the entire bench will come off away from the 2x4. And again, remember, this 2x4 is the thing that is actually hooked in via the U-bolt to the floor. So now the entire bench is hooked into the floor. We got one of these connections here on the rear of the bench, and then the other one, you can kind of see it right down there. I've got a very similar plate right there that I just screw in, and that gets it installed. So this bench is now in, so I think maybe what we should do is, well, I've got all the drawers installed on the passenger side. We gotta do the same. Let's get the drawers installed on the driver's side. All right, so now we've got both benches installed. We've got all of the drawers pretty much installed. So now we need to go ahead and grab the table, and the table just is going to flop right here in the middle. So while I'm dragging this table in here, I neglected to mention that both of these benches, and in fact the kitchen pod as well, they are completely modular units. So I don't have to disassemble them too much. They basically just detach from those bolts that we're talking about, and then the entire bench slides in and out. I've got a separate video showing how I drag these entire benches in and out, so check that out if you're interested. All right, so now that the table's in, as you can kind of see, the table kind of goes up and down, and when it's in the down position, that's how it's configured for the bed mode. So now we just got to load in the 2 mattresses, and this will make up our bed, and then when we want the table in the up configuration, these mattresses will bend 90 degrees and turn into seats for the benches. All right, so we've got the benches all set up. So now let's just go ahead and raise the table. So we'll get this out of bed mode and up into table mode. And I think we're getting pretty close to being done with our conversion from our passenger transport van back into our camper configuration. So here we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Yep, this seems like about back to normal. All right, so there you have it. I think we're pretty much done. Let's go take a look. Yeah, so I think we've converted everything back from our passenger configuration to our camper configuration. So yeah, we got all the benches in, we got the bed, it's going up and down so we can have table mode if necessary. Let's go take a look inside. Yeah, we've got our sink and everything ready to go. Lighting, electrical's all back in, so yeah. Not too shabby. I think overall this whole process took me about, I guess I would say 4 hours, so took a better part of a day. But yeah, I think we're ready to go. So the last thing we need to do is just kind of load it up, and I think we'll be ready for camping. So I think it's probably a great spot to leave it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, I also hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. I have a lot of other van build videos, including a full tour of this showing all the features of the van camper mode. And remember, the new videos come out every Monday, so hopefully I'll be able to catch you at a future video and we can all learn something new together. So until then, I think I'll sign off. Talk to you later. Bye.